Well, there's a look at summer. I figured that was probably a cool idea. Go back and look at what things were like about 5-6 months ago. Anyway, I'm also glad to see we've only dropped about 138 frames here. You can see down here at the bottom, this is my broadcaster, and yeah, we were able to run that cumulus footage, and I'm glad to see that it worked pretty good. I have to check that out. Okay, anyway, let's check out the weather across the U.S. We'll start out with the thickness and isobars. So what we see here this evening, things are pretty spread out. So the character of the thickness, rather than the individual patterns, that kind of tells us a lot about what's going on. So things are very spread out. And then we look for the fronts kind of on the south side. So roughly in this area here is where we look for those boundaries. Looks like possibly there's one through California and possibly one through Texas. In fact, there's a little bit of a low pressure area right there around Tucumcari. And that suggests that there's probably a warm front, maybe something like that. It could also be a little further north, or it could be a little further south. But we know that it's kind of in this area right there. Let me see if I can bring up that surface chart. Meteocenter.com with the British spelling. Okay, so here's the current surface chart. And this has the thickness overlay, which is a little bit too smooth. But yeah, there's Texas right there. Let's zoom in. All right, there's Amarillo right here. They've got 16 Celsius, and you can see that we've got southwest winds through this area right here, south of I-40. And on the Cap Rock right there, much different than the northerly flow we have in western Kansas right there. So where is that warm front? We're looking for it somewhere in this area right here. Well, down in the San Antonio area, we can see temperatures about 21, which is about 70 Fahrenheit, contrasting sharply with 40s in Kansas and Missouri. So to find that front, what we do is we find the southern edge of that gradient between the two. One easy way we can do it is to travel north. So we see at Del Rio 21, drops off a little bit to 19. That's going to be Graham, Texas. And then when we get to Oklahoma City, yeah, it drops off 15, then 9, and then 6. So we know it's somewhere in this region right there. So probably what I'm going to do, there's 18 right there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but 12 in East Texas. I'm going to place that like that right there. That's probably the location of that warm front. And it falls in this little trough that we see right there. Okay, so there is our frontal system there in Texas. And if we had a good, strong upper-level disturbance to work with, we could get baroclinic development with that low. So we'll take a look at the charts and see if that's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and run through the charts. Kind of a slow night. Let's see, we got Fun with Tech and Burl H, Electric Dog. And just not much weather going on tonight. Pretty fair conditions. Things should pick up next week as they get more active. So there's Texas and the Central Plains, location of that warm front. We know that it's right in that area right there. And the potential temperature field is kind of reflecting that. So I might bring that down a little bit further south based on what I see on that chart right there. And we can see the extension of that into Utah, and Nevada. So a little bit of north wind right there through Elko and Cedar City right there. Okay, we'll take a quick look at a couple of SKUTs. There's Dallas-Fort Worth, showing the dry conditions and the low levels and a little bit of moisture up above 16,000 feet. So I think what we'll do is we'll just head right into the forecast, since we don't have a whole lot going on. We'll start with the upper level chart here. There we go. There's the upper level chart running it through the weekend, and we see our first disturbance coming out of the Four Corners area, and we have a large long wave trough off the west coast. That's going to bring in some stronger upper level winds and probably some upper level disturbances along with that. And the first of that's going to come into the area on Monday and Tuesday. Strong jet stream winds pick up. And then we get our troughing here. This is probably associated with an outbreak of cold air around Wednesday or Thursday. That's helping to give us the height falls that we see in this area. And very strong jet. I don't think that was showing up yesterday. So we may be looking at some cold conditions next week. Pretty strong jet stream energy off the Carolinas right there. Northwest flow elsewhere in the U.S. And more northerly flow. So I think we're heading into a cold pattern here starting around midweek next week. Things kind of moderate there towards the end. All right, the upper level or the surface field is going to look like this. Pretty quiet right now. High pressure across the northeast U.S. Southerly flow starting to return into Texas. And we know that warm front is right in that area right there. And this is running the chart forward. Not a whole lot of change until Sunday. Frontal system coming together there in the western U.S. And then it crosses the Rockies on Monday. So it should be kind of a stormy, unsettled pattern there in the central Rockies. So we're looking at something like that right there for Monday morning. Pretty strong front coming out of the central U.S. That's going to come into Texas on Tuesday. I think maybe the models are running a little bit fast with us compared to yesterday. 540 line coming down to Oklahoma and North Texas. There it is right there. So this will be our first cold one. Plenty of cold air coming in from Canada. And a couple disturbances. There's a reinforcing shot coming in for Friday next week. That is a Alberta Clipper. And look at how well defined that is. I've got a ladybug in here. Gives you some idea of how warm it's been. In Texas, we've had highs in the 70s. But this will be quite a change here. This is the 8th and 9th of December. Cold air coming southward and into the Midwest right there. Kind of a stormy pattern over the eastern Great Lakes. And there comes another reinforcing shot right there. That heads more towards the northeast U.S. on the 11th. And then we were looking at things to really pick up around the 14th and 15th. There's a pretty good shot right there. Wow, look at that on the East Coast. That is, I I don't know if that's actually going to happen there, but obviously 336 hours out, we're going to have to keep a close eye on that right there. That is a nor'easter. So let's take that backwards, show you where that came from. 24, 34. Wow, that was 12 hours ago, or 12 hours earlier. You can see the origin of that from the southern Appalachians, Tennessee, Georgia. We'll go back another 12 hours. And it was just a very little Alberta clipper coming out of Missouri and Arkansas there. But it's that temperature differential between the Gulf Stream waters and this very cold air, and probably some very good upper level support. Really pulled that system together there, and it's showing a 968 millibar low there in the center. Dang, look at that. That is impressive. 950 millibar low. All right, so high pressure coming in behind that. Return to southerly flow in Texas, so kind of mild there for the 16th. And then another push coming south. There it is right there for the 17th and 18th. So things should finally get busy here. Let's take a look at temperature. This is a temperature anomaly. So you can see we're running pretty warm. Some very warm weather, temperatures 30 degrees above normal for Monday in Iowa and Kansas. And here comes that first cold air outbreak. Temperatures only about 10 degrees below normal. What I like about these temperature anomaly charts is you can see polar air masses developing. And often it makes it quite clear that some polar air masses develop over the Dakotas. So you can kind of use that to kind of see the origin of some of these air masses. So you can see this cold air mass has developed over the Midwest right here. See, we started with temperatures about 12 degrees below normal. Some of this is due to advection. You're bringing cold air southward into an area that normally doesn't experience those kinds of temperatures, but some of it is due to dynamic cooling. So that could be evaporation, it could be radiation. So anyway, there's the first cold air outbreak for the 8th and 9th. Another one for the 13th and 14th. So this is hitting the Midwest pretty hard there. Temperatures 41 degrees below normal there in Kentucky and Indiana. And let's check out the absolute values of temperature. This is the 10th right here. Temperatures, wow, only about 12 degrees during the evening. This is 0Z on the 9th. So this is about 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can see temperatures in the teens. Illinois all the way to Kentucky. Meanwhile in Texas, of course, 50s. So this will be pretty good cold blast temperatures in the single digits and teens. We'll see how this works out with the runs coming up over the next week. And then more cold air. -5 there for Indiana. This is a 6Z temperature. This is about midnight, so yeah, this is going to be some very cold air. And then 12 noon, single digits. But this is likely to change or quite a bit, so I would not put much stock in like the temperature differential between there and there. We'll probably see this evolve and change over the next week or so. Okay, viewer numbers have come up. I guess some latecomers coming into the webcast. I'll show you the graph right here. This is showing how many viewers we have. You can see it's slowly been coming up. We've got, let's see, Cthulhu, Megan John, 39 degrees there in Minnesota, working on a hair hygrometer. Yeah, very interesting. Hair hygrometers, yeah, the first radiosondes used hair hygrometers. Basically the space between the, I think the collagens in the hair, when you have moisture, it causes the hair to expand. One very interesting piece of technology that the Russians and Chinese used was gold beater's skin. And basically that's ox intestine. And what they would do is they would process that in like a potassium hydroxide solution and do some other stuff, and they would mount this in a radiosonde, a very kind of like tiny enclosure for a hygrometer, and this gold beater skin would also react to moisture changes. And I believe the Russians the Russians, I think they're still using that in some of their radiosondes even to this day. Michael Burrell, let's see here, ready for cold weather there in Georgia. Mason Willits joining us. Fred Reamer, 31 degrees, Grand Forks, going to see a big cool down in about 2 weeks. Tree Nelson is here. Trish and Lou, can you show the snowstorm? I already went through those charts about 10 minutes ago. I can probably bring up the snow accumulations. Let me do that. Okay, so this is going to be the 120-hour snow accumulations. So it looks like there's already some snow starting out on this chart here. Looking at about 1 to 3 inches there in Wisconsin. And it looks like some new snow coming in for the 15th and 16th. Looks pretty light. And I don't think we get any of the deeper moisture up into that area. So, not looking at a whole lot of snow. Yeah, it looks like this is probably something that's going to fall during the 0 through 120-hour time frame. So let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, there we go. That hits around Monday or Tuesday. That's about 84 hours out, so it's going to be kind of hard to forecast exact amounts, especially due to this being kind of showery. Convective weather is pretty hard to forecast that far out, but in short, we're looking at about 1 to 2 inches. Cool weather where Ryan is. Little rain showers coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. Sean Body. Typical mundane weather in San Diego. Looking for a dry winter. Fred Reamer, 498 decameter thickness. And Kathy Campbell Wallace is here. And I think that's about all I got for this evening. I've got to get back to work on that book and hopefully finish that. So I'll go ahead and do that, and hopefully you'll have a good evening, and we will see you tomorrow.